Yo, what's up, man? Knight? How's it going? Just getting started here. To put down our agenda. I hope everybody who was interested could sync up the changes that I submitted yesterday. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and share the Discord for anybody who's new here. Just post that right in the chat right there. Okay, and the GitHub just in case. Let's just copy that down. Here's our source code. I'll try to keep this up to date as much as possible. If anybody's new here, welcome. We're developing a fighting game using the Zig programming language here from scratch. Well, as much as scratch as you possibly can reasonably want to do. Okay. So yeah, yesterday we got a little sidetracked trying to get a test working in our state machine processor to start our code for handling state machines. We had run into a little bug with the struct using it kind of like, well, it was a way for us to basically inject test code into our state machine. But anyway, looked like it was like a compiler bug or something. But anyway, today what I want to do is support state transitions on the state machine processor. Right now we're only supporting calling the update callback, and then we're going to make some basic character states and support transitions hopefully and test them. Okay. All right, just jumping right in here. Let's jump into our state machine. So we have our update state machine function, which is just in charge of calling update on the current active state. And I think we've tested what we want to test there, right? Yeah. So basically we initialize our processor with a context. We might change how this is handled, by the way. I might actually pass in a context. We'll get to there later. Anyway, yeah, we made a test state. Register that state, and sorry, a little bit of allergies here. And we upped the state machine and tested that what happened. Okay, so we need to somehow support transitions. I haven't entirely decided how I want to do that. Right. So states need to be able to indicate that that a transition should occur. And the transition is just going from one state to the other atomically, right? We go from, well, it's easier to look at this. Go from saying idle to attack, or to attack back to idle. So there's two ways we can kind of handle this, and two ways I've often seen it handled is either like returning the next state, which means you need to have, well, since we're using IDs, it's not so bad, but yeah, or you can just indicate that a state is sorry, I don't need coffee. You know, we could just indicate that we need to explicitly transition to this state using a function call. Now, the way we've kind of like compartmentalized everything here, we don't really have access to anything from within our state that we could call, right? Unless we implemented a global function that had access to global state. So conceivably, let's just look at some of our common states. So one thing we could do is during standing, we could conceivably have something like this, right? Like, say we had access, we're going to have to add context here at some point. But say something like, if we had like context input was button pressed or something like this, we could do something like, I don't know, input command tech, and then we could just say, okay, let's transition to state you know, state ID or whatever, standing punch or something. Conceivably, you could do something like that, right? That's the idea. But again, this would assume that transition to state is a global accessible function, and you have access to some input struct or something like that, or module. So I think the simplest thing to test for now is, since we don't have access to anything like that yet, we really need to decide how we're going to handle this, because I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to add something to the context that's like next state. And that next state is set, then we'll go. So let's just do a first pass on this. And I don't know if I'll entirely be happy with it, but so right now there's a dummy in this. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, this could be a problem, but we'll get to it next state. Okay. So I kind of want to, well, we have to actually do this. So something I'm interested in trying to do, we don't need this dummy anymore. Let's just leave it in there for posterity, just in case. Oh no, let's get rid of it. Okay. So the kind of idea here is, well, the first kind of pass we could do, we could say something like, we could have a trigger, right, in our context. So let's say, transition state transition trigger. It's not a great name, but or just say, we don't even need state transition. We'll say B for bull, of course. It's kind of become a habit of mine as well, and a lot of game code bases use B to indicate a boolean, but okay, for any kind of thing like that. Okay. What should we call it? Let's just say B transition, okay, for now. I was trying to come up with a simple name, but okay. So we're going to make use of the context to indicate whether or not a state transition has occurred. And once we transition, we're going to have to set this back to false. Otherwise, we'd keep transitioning, right? Okay. So for now, we're just going to leave this here. We might reorganize the state at some point. Okay. So what we'll have to do is, so we have the stuff in the context, and the simplest thing to do is, let's make a test. Okay. So we might have to we might want to redo some of the stuff. So now we don't really need any custom data like before, right? So we don't really need to make this do this whole thing with, hold on. Okay, so we set up the context, assign it. So we don't really need to do this whole test context thing. We can just make a normal context, right? Let's just make a normal context. So we'll just give we'll just make a new context equals, not do this. So we don't need to do anything fancy. Just give the context assignment here. Okay, so we have the context. We set up our test state. So we have this test on update here. We can't. What we're gonna have to do is create a dummy struct if we want to like localize our test code. So we'll just do this real quick, and then we'll have our on update. Yeah, we're gonna have the function on update. It needs to take. I believe that's the signature, right? I'll just copy the signature here. Takes the pointer. I mean, of course, anybody free to ask questions if you're confused at any point. Let's see. So, sorry, this is a struct, and what we want to do is we want to trigger transition. So we can manually do this by saying context dot transition equals true, context next state equals. So let's test. Say test transition to. Okay, cool. So this is actually a good opportunity to try something. I want to register a custom state. Well, let's just stick with the common states for now. So we're going to do one update and trigger transition. So let's go from, say, standing to attacking, or no, standing to jumping. So commit state ID. We want to go from jump. Okay. And we're going to start in standing state. So we need to register a standing state. So we need two states. Gotcha. Okay, so we need let's see. So we get standing callbacks. Well, you know what? Let's just call it our dummy because I'm going to use this standing on update here, and we're going to make a function for handling honestly, we don't even need to register a jumping update because we're not even testing that. We're just testing the transition. Okay. So what's going wrong here? Okay, so we need to use dummy standing. We'll just use on update. Yeah, I was standing on update. Okay, and then let's call back the standing callbacks here. We'll pass that in here. Wait, did I mess that up? Oh, hold on a second. Oh, self. Okay, got it. Okay. So we're gonna register standing, and then we need jump callbacks, and it's gonna equal. Honestly, does that work? So we're gonna register jump here afterwards. So jumping doesn't have any callbacks because we're basically just not gonna even bother. We're just testing transition. Okay, so we're gonna do one update to the state machine. So it should go from standing to jump within that one update, and then we need to test. We need to test a few things. We want to verify the context transition is false. right? It should be over with, because we're going to transition within that update. And then and then what else we're going to do? We're going to test that. Okay. So we need to try standard testing. Oh, this is expect equal. What's the difference? Oh, that's kind of, so is that useful here? I want to make sure that the processor current state is equal to combat state ID jump. And right now this test should fail if we actually compile, which we don't. It needs a void, and it also needs to be context. Okay. Oops. Did I do that twice? Well, is this a compiler issue? Redeclaration of local variable context. It's okay. That's fine. We'll just move it over here. It should be fine, right? Okay. Missing field next state. Oh. That should be default, right? Hold on. Oh. Let's just say by default standing. We might add an invalid state if we really want that at some point, and make it optional. I don't know. I haven't decided how I want to handle that. Okay. Okay. Our test failed, as they should. Oh, we didn't name the test, did we? Let's just make sure we do that properly. Okay. Just so we can be, whoops. Oh yeah, that's definitely not. Okay, so register combat state worked, test running state, on-state machine worked. Whoops. Sorry. Test 3. Is it okay to do like 2 tests like this within one? Let me comment this out and see what it looks like. Okay, anyway, let's just leave that in for now. I'm not sure if this is the right way to do things in SIG, but So we just need to make this work, and then the test should pass. So at the moment, let's do that. So after we run an update, we'll check to see if there was a transition. So just to be clear, what this is doing is making sure that the comment state is actually set. Okay. So yeah, if there's a transition, so if context, is that the comment state context? No, what was the context? That should be the set. So if the context dot be transition is triggered, then we'll do a transition. So we'll say we need to say, first thing we do is the current. Oh yeah, self. Oh right, it has to be self. Okay, be that clear because it's a passed-in variable. So self, like context. Self.current state. It's gonna be equal to the self.context dot. Self.context dot next state. What's going on there? And actually we need to call, not only do we need to call an update, so before we do this we need to call the onExit function. So that's kind of annoying to do all this every time. What should I do? I'm going to check to see if context is valid up here first. So should we allow any, no, if context is not set, we shouldn't allow anything. So let's go ahead and move this out here. And then we'll just have access to the context like that. Okay. So we'll have access to context here like this. Okay. Because the context shouldn't change within a state update. Man, some tennis elbow or something on here. I wonder if that's coming from how I have my desk set up. Okay. So to simplify things, I'm just going to move everything inside of here. Whoops, that's not. So right now it means only time we can transition is after an update. We might change that. Okay. So we update and then we transition. So before we actually assign this, we need to do, actually what we need to do is self.be, context.be transition is equals false. Okay, and we need to call the on, we need to call the onExit. It doesn't actually need to be here. Well, let's just move that out. Oops. So we have access to our current state through here, right? So we need to do something like this again. I don't know if this is the cleanest way to do this every time because this isn't optional. I wonder if this would look nicer to do this. Not add all the additional lines. I want to use a bracket to not make any mistakes on this, but yeah, let's just do something like this for now. Okay. Because I want to do something like that for the next state. So if on end is set up, we do that. Actually, we should test to see if on end is called too. Transitions are a little more complicated, multi-part. We need to test for multiple things happening. Okay, we'll get back to that, I guess. Okay, on end. Oh, and this be on end. On end. Okay. It captures the on end function if the optional is set. It calls it with a context. We haven't. I don't think we've given on end a context yet. We'll change that. And then we need to do that for the next state. So yeah. Because we don't know if that it's actually assigned, so we're going to have to do that here as well. I'm going to have to maybe abstract some of this stuff away, make it cleaner. So it's not going to be on end, it's going to be on start. So this is not going to work here. Let's do just to make this cleaner. So we're going to call the on end of our old state, and we're going to call on start of our next state with the context. Okay, so we're going to do this just so that the states can clean themselves up if they have like some like variables or something they need to reset in the context. And same thing with on start. They need to, if they need to initialize anything, such as like starting an animation or whatever, they can do it here. Okay, and then of course we need to make sure the transition isn't. Okay, we have all that, and so that should do that. We still have some stuff we need to do, like, okay, we already set up the comment state to take that. Does it compile? My short-term memory's already been overflown. Okay, it does compile. Okay, cool. Alrighty, so does our test pass? So all the tests we have so far passed. I'm going to add a few more tests here real quick. Because we need to make sure that on start and on exit were actually called. So yeah, so for now, let's do this. So we need a standing on exit. Not exit, we call it on end. We don't call it on exit, we call it on end. Okay, we don't need to do anything like this. We're going to have to add, we have to do what we did before up here, right? With this test context stuff. So let's reuse the test context and do it this kind of setup. Then we can reuse that variable to test if the state has changed. Everything else should be the same, but on sending on in, we need to take that, we need to convert that context back. We need to do something like this, right? This is what we need to do on end. Yeah. Because we're going to do another check like this. We need to do this. So if we don't set this, it should just be false and fail. Oh, again, not to. What? No member name, B transition struct, test context. Oh. Okay, we have to change that, right? So this failed, right? If we go here and set this to true, does it make it work? One failed still. Why did it fail? Let's look at this. So it was on in not called. Oh, I didn't assign on in. Great. This is why we have tests. So we do on end equals dummy standing on it on end. Okay. And all our tests pass. Yay. We still need to test for one more thing. We need to test to see if on start was called for jumping. So let's say jump on start was called, and we need to add a new variable just for testing purposes. So let's add test var2. So that's gonna be false at the start, and we need to assign the jumping callback. So on start equals dummy dot jump on start. Okay, so if we add another okay, so this test var2 should end up being true, and our test should fail. Yeah, so it did fail, as we expect. So if we go in here and assign this to true, it means it gets called, and all tests pass. Oh, fantastic. So, at least for one call, we have functioning state transitions. Let's check checking out the rain outside. I actually go pick up my bike. We had a big downpour last night. I had to leave my bike at the station. And I want to pay the exuberant fees for leaving it overnight, so more than 24 hours. Okay. I wonder if I might just end up making this a quick stream. I thought of making a bunch of states to test, but there's nothing wrong with a short stream. Anyway, I think I'm gonna cut it off here for now, and we'll circle back around and start implementing our state machine for the character. What I'll do next time is I'm gonna look and see what kind of assets we have, because we're gonna have to do something like to actually see a change on screen. Well, we could just do physics for now, I guess. Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, it's on GitHub. Let me post the YouTube link with all the videos. Give me a second. Okay, let me post that. I think that's the right link for the video list. And let me copy paste the GitHub. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and just submit this. If there's any questions while I'm doing this, feel free to ask. Let's make sure there's no junk here. Did we make a change to this? No, not really. Okay. So going back to our planning real quick, we didn't really make basic character states. We tested transitions. So we'll just mark that as being done today. Yeah. So I'll go ahead and submit those. I'll go ahead and just push that. Okay, I know it's a short stream, but I just want to get some of that done and documented. So yeah, I mean, thanks everybody for coming by, despite not being very long. Hope to see y'all soon. Maybe I'll do a longer stream on the weekend. But until then, feel free to drop by our Discord. I'll paste that just one more time in the chat. And for anybody who missed it, and just if you just want to hang out, chat, have any questions about fighting game development, or maybe netcode or whatever, just come on by and we can do that. But until then, hope you have a good rest of your day. See ya.